Yeah, I'll have to yell my questions. Anything you've sort of had a chance to look back at the Philadelphia game, any major takeaways from that, or just sort of put it in the rearview mirror and move forward to RSL?
Yeah, I think it's the circumstances that led into the game were such that we always felt like there was a possibility of getting a relatively flat, energyless performance given where players had come from that week. In fact, we didn't get the group back together until the day before the game. So whilst I was really hopeful that wouldn't be the case, it was the case ultimately. So I think it's one of them not to dwell on all that much and move on quickly and have a good week's worth of work.
And is there anything in particular tactically that you saw that you either liked or didn't like, or maybe it was just a player getting back into fitness that you can take away from that?
I think it was the shame about that game was that the goals that we conceded, they're relatively predictable goals to concede against a team that plays in that way. They're very strong off set plays, and they're a team that is typically pretty direct. So the fact that we conceded off a corner and then a piece of direct play as we made those changes, I think it's a shame that you lose the game in a way in which you know you probably will lose the game if you ultimately do. So I think that was disappointing. It's obviously something that we'll talk about with the players, that you of course you can lose games at this level, but you don't want to lose games in the way in which you prepared not to. And number two in ways in which are relatively basic, I would say. So that was a disappointing thing.
And as you turn the page, is the messaging just that simple to the players? It's just a couple simple mistakes, but we move on?
Yeah, well, I think we'll always try and approach losses in a really constructive way, and that's the way I talked to the players this morning, because I think when a new group of staff and players comes together, everyone's slightly uncertain as to how the staff is going to respond to losses and also losses, and how the group themselves should respond. So I said to them today that I'm always going to be a coach that's really constructive, that tries to pull the lessons from each loss to the best of our ability. So I think that's a really important thing, assuming that we feel like we've hit a certain level in terms of mentality, attitude, competitiveness and fight. And as I said, I think there were some extenuating circumstances around those things that made life difficult for us on Saturday, but we'll certainly be pulling from it what we can and moving forward.
And as you look ahead, I know it's early in the week to Real Salt Lake. Is there anything that you've seen from them thus far? They're tied with us in points in the table, obviously a very talented team and off to a good start.
Yeah, I haven't seen much beyond that, to be honest. I think we typically as staff tend to turn our attention to the opposition from this afternoon after we get this session out of the way with the players that haven't played. So I will reserve judgment until I've seen them on that.
And just finally on RSL, it may be hard to miss someone like Chicho Arango, who had a hat-trick and is leading the league in goals. We played LAFC at home, obviously with someone like Bolonga. Is there similar takeaways from what we did successfully with him that you can maybe bleed into?
Yeah, and I'm starting to get a feel now for who the real big hitters are in the league, and which of the individuals in the opposition teams can really hurt you. And I think as every coach would say in games like that, you do need to find a way of finding the opposition's best players. And I'm sure there'll be some nuances that we can pick up on that will help us do that, as will be the case in all the games that we play.
And it is another home game. Is that a game that you approach again? You sort of talked about being on the front foot and being progressive and attacking. Is that sort of the mentality going into the game?
Yeah, and that's what we're now staring down the barrel of two back-to-back evening home games. Obviously the atmosphere is inevitably going to feel a certain way that is often conducive to the team playing in a very different way to the way we played on Saturday. So I'm sort of hopeful, number one, that we as a staff and a group of players can help nudge the team to another level, but I also know that the environment and the atmosphere naturally in the home games will do so. So I'm not worried about that.
Great.